We're good? Okay. I call this meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee of the Waukesha Board of Education to order. The meeting was properly posted.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is opportunity for public comment. Anybody? Seeing nobody in the gallery for public comment. Moving on to our action items. The first action item up is the approval of minutes from the April 12th, 2021 meeting. I'll be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. A second? Raincheck. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
I abstain.
Oh, abstain? Okay, so
wasn't there.
4-0 and 1 abstention. And the next action item up is approval of the vouchers.
And there were no questions this month.
Does anybody have any questions before? Okay, so I'll be looking for a motion for approval of the vouchers.
Also move.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, 5-0. Our next action item is the approval of Les Paul Cafeteria name change.
Yeah, for the last several months, I forget when we started, but a handful of months, Diane Voigt had gotten us in contact with members of the Historical Society, et cetera, and eventually made a request that we investigate renaming the Les Paul Cafeteria. It has no name now, and just so you know, we're not overriding a name. So Dr. Siebert and I, and certainly Rob's played the biggest part in that request. We're coming forward today to see if this committee and then eventually the board is interested in pursuing that. So I'll turn it over to Rob. I don't know if you want to go through the presentation, Rob, or if you can at least provide some, or Jim, if you have some opening comments.
While you get started, get set up, Rob, I'll just refer to, as Darren said, Diane reached out and she had been connecting with members of the Historical Society and other community members. And in looking at policy 7250 on naming of school facilities, we followed that policy. So as Rob presents, the person that we're talking about is Theodora Yeomans, who actually lived in a house on that property and is a leading suffragist in Wisconsin, and we'll talk more about her background. So she certainly fits the characteristics. And we then put together the 7-person committee, and we met in January to begin thinking about the name change. Then continued to do some research, and I shouldn't say we, the group continued to do some research, put that all together, and then met with Rob and his site council, which is another part of the policy. That was in April, and the school is very supportive of it. Darren and I were very supportive of it. I think it's just something that could be pretty special and pretty interesting for you to learn about and then see what questions you might have. So with that, Rob, would you like to take us through the presentation?
Yeah, it's in board docs for them.
Yep.
Good. So in the presentation that you have, so it started when Diane came to us asking about the cafeteria, and like folks have said, it doesn't have a name on the cafeteria, and it started to talk about how athletic fields, different parts of buildings were named certain things. The name Theodore Yeomans came up in Diane and the group from the Waukesha County Historical Society.
Is the mic on, Rob?
Not loud enough? Oh, okay. Better? Yeah. Okay. You want me to start completely over? So the Diane and the group came about recognizing Theodora Yeomans, who, if you look on our campus now, the corner of Maple and Carroll Street, there were several homes there, and Theodora Yeomans resided in that area. After some research and information that Diane and a group from the Waukesha County Historical Society Museum came forward, in the presentation that you have in the board docs, talked about her impact, women's suffrage, talked about just the governmental impact that she had, the opportunities that she provoked within the state. It came to our group, a site council group member of our staff, and some outside community members. We sat in our cafeteria and talked about what it would look like. They asked some questions about the impact, the learning opportunity that it would be there. From there, it was brought forward to our entire staff. Our entire staff was made aware of this possibility. Staff were on board. An opportunity to recognize a community member, someone extremely influential, someone who lived in that block, and that was something that was even more influential in the decision to continue to move forward. One of the things we talked about is how that would be recognized, be it some type of plaque, some type of moniker to recognize Theodore Yeomans in the cafeteria. We've looked at different locations and possibilities that it could be symbolic within that cafeteria. And at our last faculty staff meeting, we discussed it again, just bringing forward that it would be coming to this part of the board, and people were in favor of that idea as we moved forward. Questions that you may have?
Is there any questions? Going through the material. Okay. Mr. Montiel.
Thank you. Not a question,
Thank you.
but just want to say it's an excellent choice. Things that she did were quite impressive. First female candidate for the Wisconsin State Senate in 1922. Yeah, very impressive. And I grew up in Waukesha. I've been here my entire life. I never heard of her, probably because I didn't look hard enough, but I think it's a perfect choice because it's not Les Paul, because we have many things named after Les Paul. Not that he's not worthy, but yeah, it's a great choice. I've learned a lot just going through the presentation. Rob, did your committee take a formal vote? Was it a consensus? Can you kind of explain how that process took place?
The committee, when we talked about moving it forward, there was no opposing opinions within that group. It was not a formal tallied vote, but all of the members that were there that throughout that time and through staff have not shown any opposition to it.
Okay, fair enough. And I also know that our policy states that, we should, if this committee approves it, it should go up to the full board for a first reading and a second reading. And I am in favor of that process. I think it's important to get our community as a whole involved. I remember it went to a whole different level last time when we had our first reading at the full committee, when we were going to rename Central to Les Paul. There were a lot of people in our community that weighed in. And so even though I think, this has been a pretty unanimous process so far, coming up to this point, I think it's important that we take it through the steps that we have in place in our policy. But I appreciate you sharing how this has come about. I think this is a woman who has accomplished a lot. And do you know which of the houses, this is more of a personal question, but do you know which of the 3 houses she lived in?
From my understanding, I'm not sure which view you have. It would have been the house closest to what was the Edison building. So from left to right, that's second home, from my understanding.
Okay.
John
Okay.
Schenkenecht, who's with the Waukesha County Historical Museum and Society, he will have that answer as soon as I would email him.
And I said it was more of a personal question, and it really is, because one of those 3 houses, and I won't tell you which one, one of my best buddies lived. And I was in that house like a million times. So it was just more of a curiosity question. So no need to really pinpoint it, Rob.
It's a great choice. The Yeomans are deep into Waukesha history, that the family owned the Freeman, so yeah, they owned the Freeman. She married the owner, is how she became yeoman. So it's good that we're naming it after prominent Waukesha citizens. So, any other questions, concerns? Action items, so we'll be looking for a motion. Anybody? Thank you. Looking for a second. Mr. Dietz seconds. So Mrs. Ryanchek moves. Mr. Dietz seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Here we go.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. All righty. Next up is approval of Montessori School of Waukesha contract language regarding fees.
Yeah, Jim and I actually went and toured MSOW several months ago, and they brought up this topic, and I said, you know, it didn't seem too controversial to ask. Right now, they're capped at the fee they can charge at $25 for the technology fee. And I said, well, just draft something, and I'd be more than happy to bring it forward to FNF. We currently have a contract, and it's in the current contract's in board docs for you to review if you like. We have one that runs from 2019 to 2024, just to give you some history. In their letter, they state it, and I didn't bother typing out a revised contract because I didn't know if we could just approve this letter, or I could type up an addendum and bring it back next month for you to consider. But the fee that's in there now, my understanding, Montessori actually started out as a 4K partner and had a 4K contract, and that's where this fee language really started. And then over time, our agreement with Montessori grew to a multi-age, multi-grade, and we just never went back and revisited it. So they're asking for the authority to charge fees not to exceed what we charge students within the district. And she lays it out, I think, very well in the letter. It's very concise, and so we don't have any issues with it. One question. Oh, are they? Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. That's progress, right?
When you say she, it's Michelle?
Michelle, I believe.
Okay.
So the new fees would be 4K would be $25 still, 5K would be $60, and then grades 1 through 8, which is all the further Montessori goes, would be $60 plus the $25 technology fee, which mirrors.
Right.
And they do make some contingencies for students who are unable to pay, or their families aren't. And I asked, Justin and I were talking about it, I didn't want to start being the bill collector for other schools' students. So we're not part of that. That's all between them, the families in Montessori. So we have no objection to it. Again, but you're under no obligation to accept it either. So.
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
Yeah, I think that the Montessori School of Waukesha has been a fantastic partner for many years. And like you had mentioned, Darren, started out as, focused on 4K, but that has expanded. I think they've done an excellent job. I think our relationship is strong. And I really see no reason why we wouldn't afford them this. So I'm going to move to approve the Montessori School of Waukesha contract language regarding fees as presented.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Montiel, thank you very much. Any further discussion, questions, concerns? Nope, it sounds like a good idea to me as well. So everybody's on an even playing field. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on.
Michelle, thank you for us.
Yes, thank you very much. Our fifth and final action item of the evening is the approval of the 339 Arlington vacant house demolition.
Yeah, we talked about this last month, and one of the primary question was we had gotten a bid or a budget number from a contractor, and they referenced spoiled
Yep.
soils.
Yep.
And it was what we thought. It was if we could use some of the dirt from Les Paul parking lot, and well, obviously, it's too late to do that now.
Yep.
I don't know if that opportunity was ever there. So we do have an updated document from Ram Construction, just eliminating that word essentially. What also has taken place since we met last time is the fire department now has some interest in doing different training. They couldn't
Yes.
do some trains because it's such a tight lot, and they didn't want to get into it. But we haven't gotten anything from them. So if the board is, or the committee's, to me, we have two paths. We can do nothing with this and bring everything back. We can approve the demolition. And then we just don't demo anything until I come back with the fire department training, if you remember the document that you approved last month. And of course, the board can, or the committee can do nothing and leave it as is. So, but if any other questions you have on the demo itself, again, we just don't feel it's a facility.
Yeah.
It's not doing anyone any good, just having that empty house sitting there. Over time, I think it might be more of an issue, so.
Good. I think we can approve the demolition and then have you manage it whenever it happens.
And I would bring back the fire department
Yeah.
document like we had last month too
Yeah.
for
That wouldn't increase or decrease their training, the contract? That wouldn't increase or decrease the amount on the contract of the RAM?
no,
Or so,
no.
yeah, I don't think there's a problem. I think we should approve it and then, or, vote on it and then have Darren manage it, whatever way he thinks fitting.
I just have
So-
one question, Mr. McCaffrey.
Yes,
Is there an intended use for the property? It's demolished?
Yeah, we've had some conversations about, ideally in the long, or not ideally, the long-term use is extra parking for Les Paul. But in the meantime, we've had some conversations of, green space with maybe gardens or some sort of instructional purpose for it. But we've really kind of been just focusing on getting it to ground zero, and then developing those plans from there.
any other questions? We're looking for a motion. I will move approval of the contract to demolish the building at 339 Arlington Avenue. Is there a second? Mr. Deeds seconds, so I motioned, Mr. Deeds second. Any further discussion? Mr. Como?
Yeah, I do agree with this approach. I'm not even sure if we need to have Mr. Clark come back and,
I would agree.
ask us for permission to have the fire department work on it. At least that's kind of where I'm
Yeah,
at.
I would
know
agree.
that's not necessarily part of this motion, but I thought we didn't at least include my thought in
No,
this
for sure,
discussion.
and
so.
Mr. Clark and I can discuss that at a later date.
Yeah, I've never actually had a building where we knew we were going to demo and then come back and talk training. The conversation kind of got flipped over the last couple of weeks, but
Yeah.
whatever you're comfortable
Yeah.
with, I can do. I
Right.
can do whatever.
So, no, I would agree.
Agree.
Deeds.
Is the cost of the demo cheaper if the fire department burns it down?
I don't think they're going to burn it down.
Oh, okay.
They're going to cut into the walls.
They're going to cut it up
Okay.
as a
There's no fire
ventilation.
because of the proximity to that
Right.
building, so they didn't want to touch that. Because that's where we started the conversation with them. We thought of it as a true fire training, but they're like,
They're not big on that within the city limits. They don't even want to do it at our other property. All righty, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to discussion information items. First one up is the monthly budget report.
Okay, excuse me. Apologize, I have a frog in my throat, apparently. We're right where we want to be, budget-wise. We, early in the year, we had talked about potentially having to come back and dip into our fund balance, but right now, we're looking like we're going to end the year on a good note and not have to come back and ask for additional funding. We received our lottery tax credits and our City of Waukesha tax money in April, and that totaled over $5 million. We're right at the same percentage that we normally are for tax collections. We're at, this year we're at 81.2%, and last year we were at 80.8% at this time, so our tax collections caught up. As you remember, earlier in the year we were behind, and they have caught up completely. Really on the revenue side, the only thing to point out is we did receive our common school funds. If you look at it, it looks like it dropped significantly from last year, but last year we got an extra, I believe it was about $90,000 for COVID relief for libraries to be able to add digital media for serving students that are, when we were in a virtual mode. So we have received about the same amount we normally do, but last year it was an anomaly, so I just wanted to point that out. Otherwise, with revenues, we're in really good shape. We're sitting at about almost 68% collected, and last year we were just a little over 68%. So we don't have any concerns about getting in the revenue that we're expecting. Expenses, as always, our salaries and benefits are our largest bucket, and we're sitting in a good position. Every month we run our salary projections, and we're still on target to meet where we expected to be with budget. Purchase services, student transportation, tuition, same things every month for those to be our largest numbers. There was, in our non-capital objects, there was a large expenditure for computer software, which made that particular budget line item jump to 95%. I looked into that, and that was an expenditure for math curriculum, and it's part of T&L's budget, and they have accounted for that by lowering a different part of their budget. So even though that particular area looks like it might be getting a little dangerous, overall they are well within their budget right now, and they might be coming back looking for some additional textbook money, but as they stand right now, they're good, and they're just offsetting it in a different area. Capital objects, we had some credits in there because we were selling unneeded technology to a place called Secondhand Mac. So that was the first I've seen using that company, but I'm sure we're always looking for the best deals on what we can get for our used technology. The expenditures in capital objects were for vehicle purchases of used equipment. We purchased a used lawnmower, and a used forklift last month. No general fund debt retirement last month. Insurance, just minor insurance for unemployment. We're back down to a level of where we would expect to be. Still waiting to hear when we'll get our big rebates from the COVID money, but they're still not sharing when that'll be. They just keep telling us it'll happen. So we're just wait and see. Transfers, the $219,000 transfer was for our energy efficiency. Every year for that energy efficiency loan, we would have to take the money that we had in energy savings and transfer it for part of the debt service payment. And I'm happy to report that is done now. That loan is completely paid off, so we will not have those transfers moving forward. $22,000 showing up in the other objects. That's for an annual expense we have for property tax chargebacks. And so that's about normal, what we normally spend. Right now, our expenditures overall are coming in at 57.57%, and we're at 59.63 last year. So we're well within where we expect to be in Fund 10, the general fund. Moving on to Fund 27, just mainly our grant payments that we received in April, grant and Medicaid payments. We're, again, where we expect to be with revenue. Salaries and benefits, same thing with Fund 27 as with Fund 10. We've run our projections and we're in a good position. Purchase services, mainly transportation costs. There was a journal entry. One of them looks like it's saved a lot of money, but we had to do a journal entry to move some money to help maximize our aid. We're always looking at what's aidable, what's in a grant, because if it's in a grant, you pay for something with a grant, it's not aidable any longer. So we were looking at how we could maximize some things and did some journal entries to change them around. Minimal spending pretty much in every other area, and we're in a good position at 71.45% of our spending. Fund 43 is the same, just contractor type payments, furnishings, and interest being the only really revenue we expect to see there. Any questions on that? Otherwise, I'll talk about dental and health for a minute. Okay.
Just have one, are we,
Sure.
collection of student fees?
We're doing good. We lowered our expectations this year for our budget a little bit because, but we are, I actually have, yeah, they are actually exceeding our expectation of what we're collecting right now for the fees and the textbooks. But we have some other areas that are running a little bit lower. Interest in transportation, we're running lower. But what we're overcollecting is the wrong word. What we're collecting in fees is going to make up for that. And part of that, we've got different efforts out there we found something interesting, We've always sent letters to families that were behind a little bit in fees. And we went to emails, and it's unbelievable how much more we get when those emails go out and the calls that we get in the office, people wanting to pay. I find that interesting that people are reading email more than their mail, apparently, but it's been very successful going that route, and so our student fees are in a good position right now.
Could someone remind me what happens during graduation if a student doesn't have their fees?
Well, we have in the past,
We've,
not allowed them to walk during graduation.
policy says
but-
that we cannot allow them to walk during graduation, but I would challenge anyone to find a student that hasn't been able to walk during graduation. It's the kind of thing that
Yeah.
I think it was 2 years in a row, that was a hot media.
Yes.
Channel 6 or somebody, and
Yep.
slow news day 2 years in a row, so.
So how are the yearbooks this year? That was a perennial thorn in our side.
Yearbook is a lot better. A lot of them have gone to all the money goes directly to a yearbook company.
Okay.
It's being outsourced. So
Okay.
they basically we're not doing the productions in-house so much. So
Okay.
much better position.
better.
We took care of everything to bring it where it needed to be, and it's being monitored and watched. Amy watches it very closely, and we're in a good position with
Yeah,
it.
we had some cleanup to do, but that's been done 2-3 fiscal years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several
I
years ago,
believe
so.
we did it over 2 fiscal years,
Yep.
the last one being about 2 years ago. And we've watched it very closely ever since, and that took a long time to build up to that level. So once we got to the bottom of it, we were able to clean it all up and manage expectations, and everybody's using the outsourcing type.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Como.
Yeah, so with that said, I know a handful or so years ago, Darren and Sherry and Jess, you guys all started changing these processes, trying to interface better with our parents, trying to work on a process that is friendly, but still we need to get the job done. So it sounds like it's going really well. Is there anything else left that you think you can improve upon still, or is it, pretty much as good as you can get it right now?
Our move to Payrex is going to help just make it an easier process.
We are talking about moving our credit card processing system to Payrex, which goes directly through Infinite Campus. We think that will make some things easier for the parents to be able to pay or be able to set up a payment plan. Whereas right now we can only do manual payment plans. The parent has to remember to call us every month. But otherwise, I think the email system has really helped us this year. We started that in August, I believe, and every 2 or 3 months we send out an email, and we have a phone bank going for all those parents that get their email and, I better do this right now.
Sure. Well, truly thank thank you and your team, the whole team, and all the efforts that have been made over the course of the last handful of years. This is just there were a lot of things that we needed to improve upon, and you guys have done that, and you've taken that seriously, and you've all generated some good ideas to get it done. So thank you for that.
Mr. Dietz.
And it was my understanding, like in the area of student fees, that you were going to start addressing those at the elementary level instead of waiting until they were a senior in high school and then
And the processes and all that have been put in place, but also the board's willingness to eliminate course fees is on the supply side of of the problems we had, I think is not only help the opportunities for students to take whatever classes they want, but taking a lot of burden off of us and the clerical staff at the schools as well. So
We're also more consistent with offering fee waivers. I heard in the past some parents didn't know about it. Schools weren't consistent about offering it. So as part of our email campaign throughout the year, we do, after the second or third email, if you're still getting those emails, we're saying, hey, if you need help, please reach out. We do have this.
yeah, those correspondences are reminders, but also just primarily just trying to engage them in a conversation, and we can make things happen from there. But so yeah, we've come a long ways from where we started. So.
And that first email that went out the next day, that our phone just rang nonstop. It was insane. Everyone's like, "What's going on in here?" It was
Waiting
just.
for Jerry Lewis to walk
Yeah,
in.
right, exactly.
Hey, that's what it felt like.
For those of you who remember who Jerry Lewis is at this point.
Which was good. A lot of
Labor Day
people
weekend.
were wanting to pay over the phone with a credit card. Others were questioning the fees, and we were able to at least connect with them.
Yeah, I think a significant part of it, and Jess, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the people, if we can make it more convenient, there's a willingness there, but it's an easy thing not to think about or forget about, or so.
The first Darathon worked. Sorry.
So
Go.
My family doesn't appreciate my humor either.
If there's no other expense questions, I'll just touch quickly on the health insurance and the dental insurance.
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay. We still are continuing to see favorable claim experience right now, which is great. It means our employees are, staying healthy, and to the point where our balance in our health insurance is over $6 million. So, Darren, do you want to touch on if we've decided to move with the?
yeah, we're going to come back to you with some because these reserves are. That's not in our reserves, I guess, but this outcome, again, we still think there's some pent-up health care needs out there. So we're going to have to work with our auditor on what, because you only can build reserves up so much. So we'll have to work with them to make sure they're all right with it. But we're talking about, another major contribution to our reserve fund. Because health insurance, $6 million I know sounds like a lot, but health insurance, it can swing on you in 2 months, which we keep thinking it's going to. And I think eventually it will. One of the other things we're doing to address this is, for the first time, and I don't know how long, in combination with the change in the employee clinic delivery model and the high-cost RX plan, we've now adjusted our forecast for funding or premiums for next year to no increase, which, think of the things we did, we're in a very good spot in terms of impact on individuals. So we're still working that out, and we'll come back to you with some approach, because I do think it's going to be a kind of a unique conversation. A good one, though, rather than we need to expend our reserves. So just a heads up on that, unless I'm missing something.
No, and of that $6 million, though, some of that will stay in the claims fund because of our IBNR, the incurred but not reported claims. It's usually about Anywhere from 1.7 to 1.9 of that will need to stay there to cover those claims that were incurred prior to June 30th, but not yet paid. So it's not the whole 6 million that we are looking.
So maybe, I don't know if in June we can come back, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 years ago, we actually did a kind of a walkthrough on how the accounting flows with self-funding, and then make a recommendation on what to do with these funds, and make it kind of a complete report on our health insurance program, just as a refresher, and maybe something new for some committee members, because it's an interesting thing. Yeah, age faster, but self-funding does, I think, save you money over time. But
And our dental insurance is starting to see some more use, so the beginning balance has dropped a little bit, but not significantly, about $75,000. And that one, we were still building toward having a balance in that one. We might want to look at the end of the year, taking some of that and putting it into a reserved fund, like we do with the claims money, the health claims money, just to pull it apart and say, yep, this is part of our fund balance, but it really needs to be reserved for dental claims in the future. So there'll be something we can bring back with the whole conversation about insurance. We can include a conversation on that too. But otherwise, both are in very solid positions right now.
Questions? Next up would be the budget development.
yeah, we've been, as you know, started in November working on next year's budget already, and there's some things we still don't know in terms of, for example, there's no state budget yet for next year. And there's been a lot of ESSER talk, and we've certainly been allocated a sizable amount of money to help us over the next several years. But the last few years, the board's kind of put it on administration just to, that's our task to balance the budget. And unless there was something significant like a school closure or something, we didn't come back to the board. But with ESSER and one-time money and all the things going on, I thought we should at least have a discussion. You can see where we're coming from. So I put some highlights in the executive summary, and I'll just go through the bullets quickly. One of the primary objectives was to eliminate COVID-related costs where possible, and this is really geared towards personnel more than anything else. We ran eAchieve, we ran virtual, and we ran face-to-face. Next year, we're dropping to eAchieve. We're going back to where we were, I guess. There's efficiency to be had there, and every year we go through, and that's the next bullet. We go through a right sizing of staff. It just happened to be this year, it was not only adjusting for where our enrollment is, which tends to be declining, but you're also having this third delivery model, so there was that right sizing there. And we think we're going to, let me bring up the document here. Oops. Garner, if we had paper copies, I would have had it up and right, Jess?
True.
26 FTE of teaching staff, and I would say probably 18 of those are COVID related. Costs that we knew would go away when and if we were able to return to our standard instructional models. The other things that we have in the budget is with any model, an organization our size, we go through reallocations where we repurpose. So we will be transitioning to a more comprehensive literacy support model for T&L department. That's primarily instructional coaches, and if you have questions on that, Jim's probably better to answer it than I am. But bringing back kind of a model that we had a few years ago, but wanting to refocus resources towards that. That we just touched on the health insurance. With the clinic and the high-cost RX and our claims being so good, you'll see on the list, item number 4, I usually budget a 5% increase in health insurance. And how we go about it is on average over the last several years, your renewal comes in at 8 or 10%. We make plan design changes to get down to 5%, but the district takes on 5%. So we kind of meet there. It's just a budget adjustment or assumption that we make. But this year, we have $400,000 in RX savings, and that might be a little light, hopefully, but wanted to be conservative because we've never done it before. The employee health clinic is not starting until mid-year, so those savings are only $250,000. And then to get to zero is about another $150,000 that we think we'll save. So that was obviously a big part of our goal. Budget as we're building it right now calls for the use of $739,000 of general fund balance to allow for anticipated textbook costs for the 21-22 school year. I know T&L is busy looking at adoptions. These dollars and why I landed here is for this year, we budgeted the use of $800,000. You allowed us to kind of a COVID response budget. It was fund balance. We said, all right, let's budget $800,000, but if you need more than that, come back to us. But we don't think we're going to use any of that. So I thought, well, it's about the same number. Our fund balance at the end of last year came in very good because we stopped operations for a handful of years or months. The daily sub rate for teacher subs, we're bumping to $130 a day, up from $115. That'll put us, I think there was 3 or 4 districts that are maybe at $135 or something, but this puts us at the high end of sub pay. The budget will include the implementation of a new leadership model for the service building, which I feel comfortable at this point doing. And then the last thing, and we talked about it last month, was COVID, or the ESSER dollars, and the fact that they're one-time dollars versus paying for ongoing expenditures. So this budget, as we're kind of outlining at this point, we would only use $370,000. But still, we got allocated $17 million. So in my mind, the ESSER conversation still needs to be had. We still can have it. $370,000 is a lot of money in most conversations that any of us will ever have, but in the grand scheme of things, for a $180 million operation, it's not. So that was one of the key reasons I wanted to bring this here tonight, just to, if we wanted to talk about that. So we think when all this is said and done, and I'll preface the all caps down below, we don't have a state budget yet. But that'll be an interesting process because of the ESSER dollars and just politics in general. And then I provided you the list of the ads, the reallocations, and then additional funding sources. And when we talk about additional funding sources, it's things that weren't included in my original projection. So, for example, in working with T&L, we have a grant that we think we can fund guidance counselor for eAchieve for 1 year. But that 1 year will allow us to find out where is eAchieve's enrollment really at, because it really spikes. So it kind of fit in nicely together there. So in the end, the net budget adjustments, if all these things are done, is $3 million, which is roughly what I consider to be our structural deficit with using little or no ESSER dollars. I don't know if we can, this right sizing in these health changes are great savings, but you have to do that every year. And I think next year is going to be a much more difficult time. But I thought I'd bring it back. We can answer any questions that you might have, or if we're way out of line on any of these things, we can.
First of all, I'd like to thank administration for continuing with what we've done over the last number of years, where some of you may not remember, but we used to get a list in front of the board, including items that might be $500, to try and figure out how to balance our budget. And those meetings were very difficult, and we would have our citizens comment on each of those line items of suggestions. And we would actually be pitting parent against parent and student against student to try and cheer for the things that they wanted to keep and just let go of the things that they didn't care for. And sometimes that was very awkward. So I do appreciate you sharing this. And we don't want to put our students and our parents in an awkward position. I can give you an example. We look to reduce our elementary counselors from 17 or 16 down to 1 at one time. And, how can we expect parents to be talking about their students and students to talk about why they need their guidance counselors? There's some very personal things that could be talked about there. So we were really doing some things, putting people in a very awkward position. We'd have the bands outside playing, keep the bands. I mean, it was just very stressful on our entire community to do it in that manner. So I really do appreciate the administrative team taking the time to thoroughly think through what is the best way to go about balancing our budget. And this is not an easy job to do year after year. The one line item that I saw dealing with the textbooks, I mean, going back many years ago too, I mean, I don't think we've always had an okay amount for textbooks, but I believe we've never lavishly spent in that area ever. And so we continue to, again, try and struggle year after year to figure out, well, how much do we spend on textbooks and where do we get the money from? So I can appreciate how you've put your thoughts together here, but also with the comment, Darren, on we need a long-term solution here. This is, we can't just be dependent upon certain one-time money. So I really think that this is, there's a lot more work that went into this than what meets the eye. And what is the actual number? What is our structural deficit? Is it 2.75 million or is it 3 million?
3 million. I mean, depending on what assumptions, you're in that 2.75 to 3.25 million range. So I often use just $3 million because it's a nice round number. It's in the ballpark. So.
And there's some very nice surprises, as you have noted them, good surprises that have been noted here that can help out too. So I really do really appreciate the efforts here quite a bit.
And I should add, in looking at this, the FTE or full-time equivalence seems like a very high number, but keep in mind we added a lot for COVID. So you're not comparing 1920 staffing levels and going down 26 from there. Now, next year's a whole nother conversation, but I think that's, I hope people just don't, take that number and run with it without really understanding the context of what that number came from. And Sharon has done just a great job of the right sizing of our staff just based on declining enrollment too this year. So,
and that allowed us. So the board had moved forward in the beginning of this year with a lot of unknowns, right? And we had asked administration, hey, let's make this work, make the policy work. If we need to hire people to do certain tasks, contact tracing, teaching, whatever we need, let's do, because we need to deliver this to our constituents and our students. And so you guys just went forward with trying to make that happen. And now now you're showing the impact essentially, right, Darren, of what that is. So again, very, very appreciative to be able to keep track of all those. It's not an easy number to keep track of, I'm sure, Darren, of what those extras were. So
is this ESSER 1 and 2 funding?
all three ESSERs total up to 17 million.
Okay, so it's 17 million.
And it could be more under ESSER 2 and 3.
Yes.
there's that whole face-to-face, and
Yep.
we have to send in a report, and all that whole calculation
Right.
hasn't, this is numbers that we are as sure as you can be
Okay.
about getting.
And then, I know in some of that legislation, I don't know which one, there's a certain percentage of your funding that has to be used to reduce the achievement gap created by what is the percentage? 20%. Is it 20%?
Of just ESSER 3.
Is it just ESSER 3? Is that the deal? Okay. So how much would that be?
No, it's terrible. We've been looking at it as totals.
Well, the only reason I ask is because
Yeah, but
what's the guidance?
it's, might not be a surprise, but in my interpretation, and I don't know if this is true, but we could pay for summer school with ESSER funds
Yeah, that's what I was
next
going
year.
to, okay. Right,
Say it's that. We're talking about a second summer school session.
right. Well, we don't charge for summer school though, so,
Right, but we get to count the kids.
Yes.
And we'd have the staffing costs. So I think there's things, and I'll email you the number. I'm sorry, I can't remember what.
About 2 million.
It was about 2 million.
Of that 20%.
yes, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if,
So, I mean, my question would be, I mean, are they giving us guidance about what we can do? Because, I mean,
it's
we
pretty,
could add technology, which
Yeah,
we
it's-
already
it's
have,
pretty-
obviously, but,
it's pretty broad.
okay,
ESSER 2, I can tell you, the 15th rule says pretty much anything it takes to run your schools.
yes.
And I don't think ESSER 3, I haven't seen as great of summary as I saw of ESSER 2 yet, but it's along those lines.
ESSER 3, we haven't even gotten the applications for them
Okay.
yet. I mean, they just opened the ESSER 2 application. We haven't finished ours yet because some of it is going to be our plans of what we're going to do with that money. But ESSER 3, the guidance is still coming, but that is one part of it that they built into the law was
Yes.
20%.
Okay, 20%. And then the 17 million, is that include the FEMA funds? The supposed FEMA funds?
No, because I won't believe I will never budget those dollars until the
Okay.
check's in my hand.
Right, okay. Yeah, I wouldn't either.
There's
I
no
mean,
guarantee there.
it's
That's
an odd-
truly an application.
Right,
And that's the same thing with the unemployment. We're not budgeting that
Okay.
until we
No.
know for sure.
until we see the money.
It's taking them so long to turn that around. The longer it goes, the more suspicious you get of ever
Oh,
receiving
yeah,
the funds.
the more it gets lost, the paperwork gets lost. Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, excellent. Mr. Dietz, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Just a couple questions under reductions. Number one, right sizing of teaching staff. Is there still a formula for, at least there was years ago, at the elementary level for number of students versus staff? And could you tell me what that formula is?
I can get you I know Sharon's running the same formulas that Chris ran.
5 or 26?
We're looking at facility planning. I can just tell you what we're using just for long-range facility planning in a study is 22 in the K through 2, 25 in the upper elementary grades. I would say that's a fair estimate of what Sharon's using. We haven't changed them in my time here.
Still have the large class aides and things like that?
Yep.
And then number 7, eliminate 20 EN aid positions, but then under FT it says 13.75.
Yeah, it's 20 positions that work 5.5, but it's 13.75 positions if you make them the equivalent of an 8-hour day.
Okay, that's where that comes from.
Because the teachers are based on 8-hour days, so I try to be
full-time.
yes.
Okay, I get
Yep.
it. Yep. I didn't catch that at first.
So it's 20 positions,
To come up with the
13.75 if they were 8-hour.
There you go. That's the math.
Mr. Como?
Percentage-wise, is that roughly 7 or 8% of those aides? Are they in the 300
It's 20
range?
of 330-ish positions.
Okay, okay. So not even quite that percentage.
No.
Okay.
Really what you're cutting there is a number of hours, because these aides work from 1.5 hours to 8 hours a day.
Yep.
It's all
Depending
over
on
the
the
place.
task
so.
load. Okay.
But Joe Cook and his department have put a lot of work into this, and it kind of came out to 1 5.5-hour aid position per building on average, but student needs are fluid, you know. But that's the math or the reasoning behind it.
So the instructional coaches, didn't we move a lot of those to the classroom?
We did 3 budget cycles
Yep,
ago.
yep.
We kind of came out with you kind of need a philosophy to guide you through these conversations. And at the time, Dr. Gray was, he came out and said, we're protecting class size, we're protecting the classroom. Well, that eliminates, and I'm not saying that was the right or wrong thing, I'm just saying what the conversation was.
Yeah.
That got you to who are staff who are not in direct contact with students. And that kind of guided us. So a lot of those positions in that budget cycle, I forget the exact number, 6, 7, 8 of them went away. And so we're bringing back, we think 6. I don't know if that number's been solidified yet, but it's somewhere near that, to bring more support to, it's just a philosophy shift.
So we're adding 6?
To get us close to where we were
Right.
3 or 4 years ago.
Any other questions? On to you.
Regarding the instructional coaches, I thought there was a survey that went out to first-year teachers, and they asked what was most helpful to them, and I think that was on there. Does anyone else remember that? I thought
Right.
so.
Yeah, it was like a mentor slash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could be, I don't remember seeing it. I don't see all the surveys either, so.
Something about the new
I think
teacher
you're right.
locker or
There
something.
was.
Okay, thank you.
Are we,
That goes into teacher retention and everything else when you're supporting new staff members that are coming on board, someone that can be with them,
Yeah, absolutely.
them through the hard times in the year. Yep.
so a drop off in e-achieve, what would that do to your budget?
We've budgeted, and I'm just going to use round numbers. I think their old enrollment used to be like 800 and, let's just call it 800 for easy math.
Okay.
And then they jumped up to like 1,200 or, a very high number. And we're budgeting that we come to the midpoint. They drop, we don't think we're going to maintain that they drop halfway. And then next year for that following year, we're going to have to, maybe it drops all the way and we go back to where it was, or, maybe that 1,000 to 1,100 is the new normal for EHE,
Right.
which would be great.
Okay.
But that was our approach. We're doing the same thing with summer school too.
Right.
Half the kids come back
Right. Okay.
year 1, and then for our long range projections, they all come back in year 2.
Pete?
I don't know if we're promoting eAchieve more, or if I'm watching TV more than I ever have in my
We're
life.
watching TV more.
Probably both. But I've noticed the commercials, and
Yes.
I've never, there for years, I felt like eAchieve wasn't, no one was promoting it, and we had this gem that was available to students, no matter where they were. So there must have been some recent efforts or new efforts, unless it's just me, that put more money or more emphasis on advertising.
I think TV advertising, they have always advertised, because we had a big discussion about their budget. And I think they're moving more to TV. They used to be centered on radio a lot. And I think they're allocating those funds to get a little bit more on TV.
Yeah, Joe Cook and I met with eAchieve, was that 2 years ago we went through
Yeah.
all that?
Yep.
There was talk of a shift there that they, reallocation, so maybe that's what you're seeing. Their budget hasn't,
No, their budget hasn't gone. I think they're just doing more TV ads, because I've noticed them as well. Yeah.
and we are in conversation with a couple of school districts, and I don't know if this will come to fruition or not, of maybe it's through open enrollment, or maybe it's some sort of tuition agreement of being their virtual platform.
Yep.
Professionals doing it already, so again, I don't know.
That was,
It's an interesting conversation because districts don't usually seek out places to send kids to. So But it's flattering nonetheless that we're even having these conversations, I think, so.
Yeah, well, that was always what they really wanted to do with the Achieve is use the platform for originally the sovereign nations. And it just didn't pan out. But things change in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Como?
And so eAchieve over the years has truly helped us with the open enrollment, right? So it is the offset that we've needed, actually starting a long time ago, where we had more students going out of our district than coming in. We started eAchieve and we reversed that. Now we have more coming in than going out. And during that time, roughly, we spend somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 a year to promote or to market eAchieve, and rightfully so, because we can pull from other districts throughout the state. So, but the dollar amount hasn't changed, but the strategy, Mr. Dietz, of how that money is spent shifts essentially every year. And that includes our digital marketing efforts. There was a lot of time that we had spent on digital marketing, if you recall, and where that fits in. And we had a pretty extensive, that was part of, I think, Dr. Cook's report too. So, it might seem like a lot of money to spend, but let's just say it pays off in the long run for our district quite handsomely. So, but we do need to be careful with that. We stay on top of what's the best way to spend that money.
Right.
I don't think we can assume every year that it should be the same dollar amount, and I don't necessarily think we should assume it should be spent the same way every year. So we want some analysis to go into that, and I know we've done that over the years, and see what's working and what hasn't worked, and change the strategy as we see fit.
We used to have, or we got in the cycle of having eAchieve come and give an annual report, and then some things changed, obviously, with eAchieve. And so I think that was something I had in my head to maybe come back in. I don't know I'll have to go back and look, and when we did, maybe it was into fall a little bit. Just have them come and give kind of a status of eAchieve report, and part of it was a financial analysis. But Joe's right. Our brick and mortar open enrollment, we're upside down, but eAchieve swings open enrollment in total to our favor. So.
So our third discussion information item is the USDA extension of free lunches.
Okay, first I just want to give a little overview of the different lunch programs and talk about where we've been and where we can go.
There's a lot of acronyms in this.
Yes, there are. I apologize for that, but they're also awfully long to type out. So during a normal school year, pre-pandemic, we participate in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Program to provide meals for our students. That's a model of paid, free, and reduced, depending on where a family fits with their income level. And during the summer, if you participate in the National School Lunch Program, during the summer you have your option of either participating in the Summer Food Service Program or the Seamless Summer option, it's called. It's part of the National School Lunch Program. We always choose to participate in the Summer Food Service Program because it's a higher reimbursement rate. There's more monitoring involved, but we do get a better reimbursement. So we do the monitoring to get the higher reimbursement. Once the pandemic hit, the USDA said, you know what, we need to keep students fed. We're going to expand the Summer Food Service Program, and we're going to let you run it all school year. That was originally March through, it was going to go through August. And then they came and said, well, we're going to extend it to December. Then it got extended to basically through August of this year. And the Summer Food Service Program allows us to feed every student in our district for free, breakfast and lunch, and also any community members. We have pickup sites on Mondays for coming in at the high schools to pick up a curbside pickup for a week of meals. And so we've been running with that program, fully expecting in September to go back to our National School Lunch, National School Breakfast program with the paid free and reduced model. Now the USDA has announced that we can continue to feed all students for free if we want to, but it's now under the seamless summer option, but they're giving us the same reimbursement as the summer food option. So we're getting a high reimbursement rate per meal if we choose to do this. We're bringing this to you for direction because we don't have to do it. You know, it's a benefit for our families and a benefit for the district because of the higher reimbursement rate. But we have gotten feedback from some parents that say, hey, why I can afford to pay for meals? Why are you doing this? So there's that side of it too. We can't do both. It's one or the other. We can't say, well, if you want to participate and pay, you can participate under this umbrella. We have to do one or the other. So with the seamless summer option, again, it allows us to feed all families. It allows us to feed in a community way too, where we could have a pickup. I was working with Aramark on that. Our pickups at West and South are pretty low attendance. We don't have a lot of people coming for meals there. But North is significantly high compared to the others. So we're looking at, well, maybe we have one pickup site. So we're looking, if we go this way. So we're looking at what all the options are. And so there's a bunch of waivers. I won't get into all the details of the waivers, but a lot of the waivers are similar in allowing us to send meals home with kids if we need to, if there's a quarantine situation, allowing kids to pick up meals or parents to pick up meals for the students while they're in quarantine. There's a lot of good things in place, but we just wanted to get your feedback and see what your thoughts are about continuing to move forward with the seamless summer option in fall and not the normal national school lunch and breakfast program. The food requirements are going to be the same as far as what we're offering and the components and the quality of the food.
Yeah, we brought this back because Joe had asked a question a few meetings ago, and I can't remember why we're even on the topic, but last spring when all this was going, we were just making decisions because there was just no way to wait for a meeting cycle to go through. And Joe asked, well, who approved doing the free lunches every day? And we did. But I remembered, now that we have time to reflect a little bit with all this, we thought we'd just bring it back and see if there's any reason why we shouldn't move ahead with it rather than being a conversation after we've responded. So that's the background of why it's on the agenda today.
So how's it working in our cafeterias? There is a free lunch option.
Everybody eats for free right now. There are some minimal a la carte options available to students. Not as much as there used to be, just because of trying to simplify, keep the lines from being long, and keep everybody from congregating. But every student can eat breakfast and lunch for free.
So the school district that I work in, you have a free option, but there are different options that you would have to pay for. So, for instance, one day a sub would be the free, but if you wanted to, you could buy a piece of pizza or a hamburger.
And that we've done in the past as far as a la carte, that we would consider that.
Okay.
And right now they're doing very minimal a la carte. And it has to be, but you're right, it has to be a fully reimbursable meal. And they have a couple different options
Yep,
at the
it has
high
to-
school levels
yep.
that they can pick from.
Right.
But they are making everything into a fully reimbursable meal to make it easier on us as far as tracking goes.
So
I
Aramark is
also
making
think, is this the high school?
it. Yes.
I don't think Oconomowoc High School is in the national,
They are not.
Okay.
so that changes everything.
Alrighty. So
They don't participate.
you're thinking they're in the other?
They don't participate at the high school level in the National School Lunch Program at all. So they potentially could have gone to the summer food service program
Okay.
during the pandemic. That I'm not aware of, but normally at the high school level, from what I understand, they didn't want to be held to the guidelines, the food
Right.
guidelines, and want to offer different types of food.
I believe somehow they're still being reimbursed for those meals.
And I'm guessing maybe right now during the pandemic, they're
Well, I know
participating.
they're being reimbursed.
Yeah, but
Schools are not giving
is that
free food.
always or just Because during the pandemic, I'm guessing they went to the summer food service
Yeah,
program
I don't know what
because
they're
they
under.
didn't have to be in the National School Lunch Program to participate in that.
Yeah, that's just one guess of why it'd be different is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
that's a
completely
guess.
different. I was just, you have one option and it changes every day. And they have Airmark. Their food service. And
Now-
then, but you can purchase other combos
We've
if
cut-
you want something different than whatever the menu is that Airmark is providing for the free lunch. And yeah, they're getting reimbursed somehow. I don't know but so all the meals are free here. You can't pay for a meal
Correct, a
in
fully,
Waukesha.
what they would consider a fully reimbursable meal, which is all the components offered to you.
You got to have the
and-
fruit and the
Right.
milk and yeah, because that's
You
exactly
have to
how
have 5
Economwalk's-
components
Yep.
offered, and they have to take a certain combination of those.
Yes, and that's exactly how Economwalk's doing it, except they only have one choice a day.
And that's fully within the program.
Yeah. Okay.
And we moved, I want to say last year, we moved from having a lot of the individual a la carte things because the price was almost the same to the students, to making all of our things a reimbursable meal. So if you wanted a slice of pizza, you were going to get the whole reimbursable meal, and that way we could keep the cost. You know, the students are getting more for their money, and we get a better reimbursement for it than just a slice of pizza.
So okay. So all of our meals are free. Good to know. Any other questions? Mrs. Ranachek?
Oh, I have an earful, but I will only give you a little bit. So every time I hear the word free, I think someone's paying for it, and we are paying for it. And just because it is free for us, for me, for my family right now, I'm telling Carson, okay, you're going to take hot lunch today. And I stopped packing lunches, but for, boy, I don't know, 17 years, they have been packing their own lunches every day because school lunch was too expensive for us. So I have 3 kids, I had them, and so I'm going to feed them, and I think that's the responsibility of an adult. Yes, we have 300 this year, homeless kids in our population, but we have help for them, and we have free reduced lunch for our low-income families and all of that. But when you just make a blanket, everything's free for everyone, that means that there are people out there that do not have kids that are paying for my kids to eat. Can we just get back to, if I have children, I should be able to provide for them, and if I can't, there is help for them, but stop feeding people that can provide for them. I feel like this is a big problem, and it's really easy to get sucked into and to become spoiled, and then to just think it's not my problem anymore. It's everyone else's problem to feed my children. So I don't agree with it at all, and I'm probably the only one, but every time I hear the word free, I just think it's not free because it doesn't grow on trees. They're not just going picking money off. It's other people paying for our children to eat. And when we can provide for that in our own way, in our own family, I think it's wrong for us to take it. So that's my 2 cents in a nutshell, or I could go on for an hour.
No, for sure.
Can I point out one thing, too? This is a federal level program. So you're absolutely right. It's funded by taxpayer dollars at the federal level. So from a state perspective, it doesn't impact what we're charging with a tax levy or anything like that. But you're absolutely right. It's funded with taxpayer dollars at the federal level.
And one other thing that I thought of when I heard about this, because I share a lot of what you're saying, is when do you stop? Because at some point, people will get accustomed to this, and the feds will, whoever's running, who needs votes, might continue this until. So that's my fear, is that it's the slow addiction of this service. So that's why the other reason I wanted to bring it back is because there is that concern, and I share that, is free's a funny thing.
Yeah.
So
Como?
So Darren, do we have any data on pre-COVID? Here's where we're at with free and reduced lunches, and here's where we went on the program for this last year. Do we have some sort of sense of
Sure.
that?
I looked back, and just to try to compare apples to apples, I looked at September of 2019 through February of 2020, pre-pandemic, to September of this year to February of this year to compare. And in that time frame, pre-pandemic, we had 498,419 meals served across all students. Of that, 245,543 were free and 34,000 were reduced. What we've done for this year so far in all
Do you
free.
have percentages? Do you have those percentages there?
I don't, but I have a calculator.
Okay.
I could probably figure that out. So which percentage particularly you're looking for? What percentage of the total?
The free percentage. Because it was pretty
that's the
low for
virtual
35,000 meals for reduced, but it was 200 and something.
Yeah, I'll add the two together because they generally go hand in hand.
Okay, that's
'cause
fair.
The reduced meals are relatively inexpensive. While I do that, let me, but this year we've served 407,822 free meals. And we have to keep in mind that we've got about, at any point in time earlier in the year, 18% students opting to go virtual. And that's just about the difference between the total of the 2 years. But give me a second for, calculator.
Someone tuning in right now might think, oh, my volume's not working.
That's right.
Could be.
And we were all holding very still, too. We weren't moving.
Yeah, they weren't. Stream's frozen.
As if the fate of the district depends on this calculation.
And I was having Jeopardy like music, do-do-do, going in my head.
Played it.
Anyways, about 56% of those meals served. Now, that's not necessarily our free and reduced population percentage. It's of the meals served, about 56% in the past were free or reduced.
Okay.
And, I
And then for last year, what's the percentage? Just to.
that was last year. This year, it's 100% free. So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because the way we do it too, we're not ringing it up by individual students, so I can't tell you of all those free
Right,
meals,
and
how many that are
counting the meals.
participating
Yeah, and-
are free versus paid versus reduced.
Yeah,
That
and-
I can't compare
Okay, I
those
got you.
numbers, sorry.
And there's another curveball. We have, we were virtual for some students this year. If they chose to be virtual, they might have taken a free lunch if
And
they
they-
were in school, so.
We did offer pickups at the high
They
school,
would've,
but it's
so.
been not well used.
I was just trying to get at, well, how many of those people were still just eating big lunches, and we probably don't know, how many of those
I
students.
can't break it down by that percentage,
Yeah,
because in order
that's
to
fair
keep
enough.
them flowing through the cafeteria, we opted to use tally sheets versus ringing students up.
Okay,
So there's no way to
Fair
know
enough.
that.
fair enough.
Okay, so when do we have to make the decision on that? When do we make the decision on whether we're going to, because I agree with you, Darren, and I agree with Karen. So,
We brought it as
30th.
discussion today, but we could come back, depending on where this discussion went in June, and you guys could agendize it as action for further conversation, or if there's other pieces of information that we might, but June 30th is the cutoff to make the,
We have to have our contract
Okay.
in place by June 30th. And I'll say I don't disagree with these sentiments at
Right.
all. The only thing I will throw out as a word of caution is that there's organizations in the community that are big on feeding families, and it may not be taken well in the press. I'm just going to put that out there. There's one organization in particular that has been bashing schools over some of the things with the PEBT benefits, and I think that, not that that's a reason to make a decision, it's just food for thought.
so
But I don't disagree with the
yeah,
comments.
no, for sure, I totally understand. So who holds the paper on all these lunches? Are we paying and then we're getting reimbursed, or is Aramark paying and they're getting reimbursed by the feds? And how quickly does that money come in? And
We
timely.
pay, yeah, it's very
Is it?
timely.
Okay.
We pay Airmark, and then we get reimbursed. We have to claim it within 60 days, or we
Okay.
don't get it. So we generally claim within the first 30 days,
Yes.
in case there's any corrections.
Okay.
But and then they turn around, and within a week or two of our claim, we get our money. So it's generally about 5 to 6 weeks.
Okay. Do you know how many other school districts in the area are currently utilizing this program to this degree? Obviously,
I'm not aware.
Conwalk's not. They're doing something a little bit different. So I was just wondering, how many do you think are giving everything for free?
I think the majority
I
of
would
them
say
from.
majority. I would say majority.
We could certainly do some polling and
Yeah, I
bring
would like
that
to know.
back. But
I mean, I was unaware that we're giving everything for free. I thought that the program was similar to the way Oconomowoc was running theirs.
and there is
I like
some
that,
a la
and I
carte.
like that program better, to tell you the truth. I don't think everything should be for free. I don't think we should be free pizza or free whatever. I mean, the lunch choices at Oconomowoc that are free every day are fantastic, but not everything's free. So that's a bit of a surprise for me.
And we do still have a la carte items. That
Yeah, no,
if
I know for
someone
sure.
Wants to just buy nachos, or I don't
Yeah,
know
no,
offhand
yeah.
what we all have, but
Right, no,
there's
for
some
sure.
paid things. But we were really trying to minimize the time it takes to congregate and
No.
exchange money. And
Yeah, no, I agree 100% because I know at Oconomowoc, every kid is run through, regardless of it's the free or not, with the ID and the whole scan and then the ID number. So I know that takes time, but I'm glad that this was on the agenda so we everybody here understands what the food service looks like in Waukesha, because I had no idea. I mean, you obviously did because you have children partaking in it. Mr. Montiel.
Yeah, I guess to that point, I just want to make sure what the question is. If we decide to continue using this program, those free lunches, not free lunches, but those lunches will be routed through the summer and paid entirely by the feds?
well, as it is, we're running it through the summer program.
Okay.
That ends the first day our school year starts. But yes, then if we chose to go with the summer seamless option, all students will be rung up, but all the reimbursable meals would be free. It is a federal program.
And if we choose not to do that, then we have to
We go back to
just
what we
go
did
back to the
before.
normal, and then we pay for it.
And there is a free and reduced program that people can apply for, and it's been very successful in the past at helping to feed families that need that extra
But it wouldn't
help.
feed everybody, regardless
It
of
doesn't
income
feed
or need.
everybody. You have
Okay.
to fall within certain income guidelines for
Okay.
that.
So the feds are going to spend this money regardless of whether or not we take it or not. And that's a whole nother conversation, because if I could stop the Fed from spending, that's a different story, but,
Exactly.
okay. All right, okay, thank you.
Mr. Dietz.
Just to follow up to Mr. Montiel's question, would that be then free lunches for the entire school year next year, or just the fall?
It's the entire school year. They've already,
30th,
till June 30th.
22.
Or, yeah, June, whenever your school year ends in June.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I have another
breakfast.
question. In the past, if you've qualified for free and reduced lunch, that enabled certain other fees to be waived, I think?
And reduced, yeah, her athletic
Yes.
fee
So
is reduced.
how has that been handled this year?
We still ask people to fill out applications for free and reduced, and then there's something called direct certification that gets run, that people that are on other programs automatically qualify for. Jess handles that, and she runs the direct certifications periodically throughout the year, and we get the online applications for those that don't directly certify. So we still have that data available as on a student level.
But aren't we struggling? Because everything's free, so people aren't filling out free and reduced forms.
Right.
They do if they
Correct.
want some of these other benefits, so.
But overall, we're struggling.
We don't have nearly the amount of paper applications that
Right,
we've
right.
had in the past. But the applications that have been filled out have been to get another benefit. The AP testing,
Right. Student fees.
yeah, the athletic fee, the,
Athletic fees.
And in the past, there are certain things that do depend on our free and reduced percentage, but right now, everything's being looked at because DPI is aware that that is just not happening.
Right.
When people are able to get free meals, they don't feel the need to fill out the application. One of the downfalls that could happen is that everybody who qualifies for free or reduced at the end of the school year into the next school year, they get a 6-week carryover period where they have to apply within that 6 weeks. Well, because these people that aren't applying, they're not going to get that carryover.
Right.
So when we do go to paid, we're going to have to do a lot of discussion with our families and publication to our families to let them know the impact that, whenever we decide it's going back to the National School Lunch Program, we need to be out there first and foremost saying, here, this is what's happening. If you don't have the carryover, if you haven't applied for last year, so get your applications in.
Mrs. Ranchak.
And it's not just lunch, it's breakfast as well, correct?
Correct.
Breakfast and lunch, 2 meals a day for every student, regardless of their income.
That is correct. And during this pandemic part, we've been able to offer meals for the weekends too. And during holidays and breaks, which is not normally part of the National School Lunch Program.
Right.
I do agree, when would it end? And, let's just say we come back next month. You guys come back, and I'd like to know a little bit more about some details here. So let's say we guide you, or I don't know if we're going to have this as an action item or not, but we either guide you or there's an action item saying that we're going to get away from the seamless summer option. And we're going to go back to the summer food service program and the breakfast program also.
To clarify, we are in the summer food service program now, so we would be going back to either the National School Lunch Program or the seamless summer if we
Okay.
wanted to offer free.
Okay,
Sorry.
so I just
It's very confusing.
I incorrectly chose the acronym.
Sure, yeah.
I had it mixed up.
I just wanted to be clear.
But what I want to know is if we did not go the SSO way, are there any?
The acronyms now?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Well, the seamless, what is it?
Summer option.
Summer option.
Okay.
So let's say we want to go back to what we used to do. Let's just put it
Pre-pandemic.
simply there. Pre-pandemic. I'd like to know at our next meeting or whenever you provide this information to us, have those programs changed in any manner? Have they gotten stricter? Have they gotten looser? What do those look like? Are they exactly the same as we've known for years? Or who knows what changes might be made? I'd like to have an understanding of that.
Right now, there's nothing that has changed because they've been making the changes to the auxiliary program.
Sure.
So, but not to say that they wouldn't tweak the others, but
Sure.
I'm guessing they wouldn't because they're offering the other program. But we'll certainly look at that. And we want to know if we can get an idea of other districts and who's,
Yeah, who's doing what?
And highlighting the struggles that you're having internally with tracking and
Yeah, oh, for sure.
what else that leads to.
You better believe it.
anything else?
Okay.
All right, so
The
we'll
big
put it on
topic.
as action.
Yeah.
You want to see any financial breakdown of if we were serving it this way, we would get
Would love
this
to
much
see a
in
financial
reimbursement
breakdown.
versus?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Coleman.
And part of that financial breakdown, where's that money coming from? Federal, state, local sources, that sort of thing as part of the breakdown.
I always break down our meals under the National School Lunch Program by, there's a small state reimbursement under the National School Lunch Program, the federal, and then what our families pay. So that's easy to do.
Alrighty, fantastic. Big topic. Alrighty, so that ends our discussion information items. Is there any recommendation for future committee meetings? Mr. Dietz, anything? A lot to think about, huh?
No,
Okay,
maybe next time.
okay. Anything else, anybody?
Can I sort of joke about something?
As long as I'm not involved in
funny?
the joke.
Well, you know, these acronyms are so silly, and there's so many of them.
Yes. There's a lot in this one.
I'm telling you, if it goes beyond 4 letters, it for sure needs to stop. 4's pushing it. I'd almost vote for 2.
We even got an acronym for school year in here. We got the school year down to an acronym.
And sorry for getting them mixed up in our discussion. I just, you know,
For the record,
they're flying out.
Just proofread
Oh, is
it
that
and
okay? I
went.
gotcha.
No, she proofread it and went. There's too many acronyms. I'm like, too bad. I can't deal with it now.
It's something.
Wow.
I haven't eaten all day, so if we could stop talking about food, it'd be great.
Yeah.
That would be great. Yes.
Oh,
I'll go
man.
get my free lunch.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm used to acronyms. I just
I know,
screwed
it's-
them all up tonight.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay. So anything else? Any other?
No, sir.
Okay. Alrighty. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.